Good morning. Today we're going to go through a video of how to make bread in the home. We're all confined at the moment, and by making bread in the home it prevents one going out and meeting people, and therefore it has a value of itself. The bread is simple to make. The ingredients are on this table here. Flour, which I've got here is a cereal flour, 1 kilogram, and it's mainly wheat flour, but it contains a little bit of rye and barley. We'll be using 20 grams of salt, 25 grams of sugar, 24 grams of dried yeast, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, and 550 mils of water. To start with, I've heated up the oven to 40 degrees, and I've got the bowl warmed up for that. I've also got a bowl of warm water that I can always dip and wipe my hands. So the first thing we do is to measure out the ingredients here. The salt, and the sugar. The sugar I'm going to put just 20 grams into this, so I'll just make this up to 40. And then I'm going to put another heaped teaspoon in this bowl, which is actually to feed the yeast during the early stages of its rehydrating and developing. And what I'm going to do is rehydrate it with 550 milliliters of warm water, which I heat up in the microwave, and I've found from experience that if I heat it up for 90 seconds, that will be sufficient to make a temperature which is roughly 40 degrees, which is a good temperature for reconstituting yeast, because the yeast is the most important part of this process. The yeast must be cosseted, I think is the right word. Make it to let it rehydrate, and then to obviously start the process which will ultimately make the bread rise. Here I'm putting 1 kilogram of flour into the mixer, and I'm going to add the salt and the sugar at this point, and then I'm going to mix it. So that's starting to mix. Meanwhile, I'm going to put the 24 grams of yeast in with the sugar that I've already put in this bowl. Each one of these is 8 grams. Now what I'll do, so that's 24 grams of yeast and a good heaped teaspoon of sugar. So I mix it up first like this. And then I add water, which I've already heated up, and it's now roughly 40 degrees, perhaps a little bit less. Anyway, it's not too hot. The main thing is not to kill the yeast at this point, because it's too hot water. And what I do now is to add the warm water stir. Stir vigorously. And once I've filled it up to about that point, now that's quite nicely mixed up. And then I put it in the oven, which is at 40 degrees. With the mixing bowl. And also I put in the remains of the 550 mils of water, which I haven't added yet. Now, coming back to the mixing machine, this is quite well mixed with a little extra whirl. So that at the moment contains the flour, the sugar and the salt. And it's usually at this point that I add my tablespoon of rather nice olive oil. This nice bottle, I've got a tablespoon here. And here we go with a tablespoon of olive oil. There we go. So that's added, and then what I do is I put this spoon here on the baking tray so I don't lose any olive oil, and that'll help to stop the bread sticking when we get to the next stages. So now I mix this up. This I no longer need. I can keep clearing as I go. Anywhere else really, I can get rid of my sachets. And recycle those. Keep my formula there for everybody to see. It's interesting to see the way it progresses. Already it's clumped together rather. You can see the yeast here. And what I do is to try and break that up. So I have a second spoon and I squash it between the spoons and I mix it again. Already you can see it starting to bubble. That's the wonderful thing about yeast. Yeast is really almost instant gardening for those who haven't got a garden. And you can see the way in which already it's starting to bubble up. And these are bubbles of carbon dioxide. The yeast is showing signs of respiring, in other words. And it's those bubbles which will ultimately be used to, well, not these ones, but ones which will be produced in time, which will gradually make our yeast rise. So this particular stage, keeping the yeast in the oven at 40 degrees. Remember, no higher than 40 degrees. If you make it higher than 40 degrees, you're risking catastrophe. The yeast will be killed and your bread will be very flat. So that is going on at the minute. I'll just let this keep on doing its work. So we'll have another look at our yeast and see how it's doing. And it really looks quite beautiful. As you see, it's nice, smooth and creamy, and there are lots of bubbles. So it's really activated and is ready for use. And what I do now is to mix it in with this flour, with its salt, its sugar and its olive oil. What I usually do is to make a hole in the middle here, and I then put in the yeast mixture. Yeast and sugar beautifully hydrated and activated. And then I rinse this out repeatedly until I've got the last residues. Then I rinse. That's pretty well clear. And then I add, so now there's 550 mils of water in that mixture, and then I use this wonderful thing. Obviously you could do all this by hand, but that does make it easier, this machine with this superb hook. I lower it in, and at very low speed I start to mix it, and that will take a few minutes. So we'll just let that go on. Just watch it. Now you see, after a few minutes of the mixture, if one has got the mixture of flour and water right, you have a dough of good quality. I'll take out the bowl, which is at 40 degrees in the oven. I powder it with a little bit of flour, ordinary white flour this is. Powder my hands a little bit too, and then I stop the machine, raise it up, and take off the hook and the dough, which comes away quite easily. Now, so that's my dough. Ideally, I'd put a little more flour on here and gradually just ease off the dough here. So I just go over it with my hands and remove it. It's slightly sticky, but it's not too bad, not too difficult. And it comes off really quite well. And there we are. We've got almost all the dough off. And I'll just put this in the water before it dries and hardens. I always keep a bowl of water ready here for this sort of thing, and also for my hands. And so if I use this, and now I'll just start to knead it. It's a nice consistency, it's just really what one wants. And it's already been mixed, but I find a little extra kneading like this actually just helps to even out anything. Sometimes that which has been at the bottom is just a little bit drier than the stuff on top. But you can see it's a nice consistency, this dough. So what I do now is just put that in the bowl here. You can see its size. It's important to note its size, because then we just put it in the oven at 40 degrees and watch it rise. Okay, well that's nearly 20 minutes have elapsed and the dough has been in the oven at 40 degrees all that time. Let's see what's happening now. And as you see, it's risen well. And now we turn it out of its bowl. We put some more flour on our hands and take this off. Bound to get some sticking. Some people probably put a bit of olive oil on it, and I didn't. Probably wise, but not too much. And you can just take it off. This nice soft thing. So that's no waste, as you see. So now what we do is pummel it down, knead it, to get all the carbon dioxide out of it. So before we let it rise once again. So it's had just about, as I said, almost 20 minutes at 40 degrees in that oven, has risen it to at least double its size, probably a little bit more. So I knead it. The technique of kneading is to rotate it and squash it really, and do that rotation just like that. It's a nice movement to do. You feel as though you're doing something worthwhile somehow when you knead. It's quite a pleasure. And so it's had 3 or 4 minutes. Now it's really, in my experience, that's plenty. So I just do the same again. I put a bit more flour in that. That's beaten down. And I put it back in the oven at 40 degrees still. So this is the second rising that it's going to do. Okay, there it is. So rather less than 20 minutes has elapsed since we put the dough in the oven. I'm going to take it out and see how it is. And in fact, it's risen very well. So that's very nice. And I'll put it on the table. Now, for those of you who have the luxury of a double oven, you will have already heated it up to 200, but I don't have that. So I have a technique here, which is a substitute. These are my son's weights, which I mustn't let drop on my toe. And I've been heating them up to 40 degrees with the bread. Put it in there. Because now I must take that out. So that's all of that up there. And now I've got to take the oven up to the heat that will be required for cooking, which is actually 200 degrees. So I've got to go there. Oh, why doesn't it work? There, 200. And that unfortunately takes a few minutes, so in fact quite a few minutes. So we'll get on with the next stage. I don't dump it down this time. I take it out, and I've already prepared my little place with some flour. And I take it out and it's nicely risen, it's a nice consistency, as you see. I put it there, and then I cut it in two with this plastic knife. Cut it in two. As I said, this is my way of doing it. It isn't written in tablets of stone or anything. Everybody can do it as they wish. And then I put it onto some flour and I elongate it to about that size. So I haven't beaten it down and it's still rising, it's still warm. And the danger at this point is that it's cooling down, which I don't like, but I don't have any choice at this particular time. Yeast is a plant which has its preferences, and its preferences are the temperature which let it produce plenty of carbon dioxide. So there are two loaves, roughly similar size, separated. They're on a tray that I've already oiled, and then I'll put them on top here. And this is my heated weights, and this little alcove, I believe, will keep them from going stone cold, because it will be about another 10 minutes at least before this oven has got up to temperature. Okay, so we'll leave it there for the moment. The oven's just got up to 200 degrees. It's taken a few minutes, as I said, and with the warmth of the blocks, it's still warm up there, so it's actually let the bread rise and continue to rise, even though it's been in a relatively cooler place than it was before. So now I just put it in the oven and leave it there for 45 minutes. 45 minutes, we'll open that and we'll see what we get. Okay, well, 45 minutes have elapsed. Let's see what we have here. So let's open the oven carefully. And here it is. 2 loaves of bread. All ready to put out, and they've risen well. So that's it. It's bread making. It really is a way of organising one's time. You have 2 periods of 15-20 minutes when you can plan to do something while the bread is rising, and you have one interval of 45 minutes to during the time it's cooking. So all in all, it's the actual making process takes very little time. The cost of these 2 loaves is probably between 2 and 3 euros, including the electricity, so it's a good deal as well. Okay, well, have a try if you like it. Thank you to Catherine Book, the photographer and camera person, for producing this video. Thank you. Bye-bye.